Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing good. So let us begin with day 2 Kubernetes setup. This lecture is going to be very important because we will be learning the different ways how Kubernetes cluster can be set up, and we will do one of the setup method practically an Amazon machine. So let us begin. So setting up a Kubernetes cluster can be done in various ways depending on your requirements, infrastructure and expertise. I am going to explain few of the common methods to deploy Kubernetes cluster. So what are those methods? First I'll explain it theoretically, and then one of the method I am going to show you practically as well. So the very simple and easiest way to set up a Kubernetes cluster is using MiniCube. What is MiniCube? MiniCube is a lightweight single node Kubernetes cluster that runs on a local machine. It is useful for development and testing purposes. It is ideal for learning Kubernetes concept and testing applications in local environment. In this lab, I am going to set up MiniCube. So I'll be explaining a lot more detail about MiniCube. But that doesn't mean we will be not learning other ways of setup that I will be coming in the another videos. The another methods apart from MiniCube is Qctl. So Qctl is a tool that helps you bootstrap a minimum viable Kubernetes cluster. It is part of the official Kubernetes distribution. This is good for setting up clusters on virtual or physical machines. It is commonly used in on-premises environment. Like in a private company, if we have a private cloud, generally we use this Qctl method to set up the Kubernetes cluster. There is another method called Kubespray. So Kubespray is an Ansible based tool that can deploy a production ready Kubernetes cluster. It supports various cloud providers and on-premises environment as well. Best for user familiar with Ansible and looking for a highly customizable and extensible solution. The another method is Rancher. So Rancher is a complete container management platform that includes its own Kubernetes distribution. It simplifies the deployment and management of Kubernetes cluster. It is suitable for those who want a user-friendly interface to manage multiple clusters and workloads. Nowadays, a lot of companies prefer managed Kubernetes services. So Azure Kubernetes service, Google Kubernetes service, and even EKS. These are the multiple Kubernetes services. Like Microsoft Azure is providing AKS, Amazon Web Services is providing EKS, Google is providing Google Kubernetes Engine. These are the multiple offered solutions. These services abstract much of the cluster management complexity. It is easier to deploy and operate Kubernetes cluster on the respective cloud platforms. OpenShift. This is also one of the way. OpenShift is a Kubernetes distribution with additional features and tools for developers and operational efficiency. It provides developer and operational tools in addition to Kubernetes. It is ideal for organizations looking for enterprise-grade Kubernetes solution with integrated developer and operational tools. In those cases, you can prefer OpenShift. Then we have K3s. K3s is a lightweight Kubernetes distribution designed for edge computing, IoT, and resource-constrained environments. It requires very less memory and storage compared to a standard Kubernetes distribution. It is suitable for scenarios where resource constraints are a concern. Docker Desktop with Kubernetes is again another method. Docker Desktop includes a Kubernetes distribution that can be easily enabled through its settings. Convenient for developers who are already using Docker Desktop for a container development. So, how many methods we understood? So, MiniCube, which we are going to do practically. Qctl, lot of organizations who are doing the on-premises setup, Qctl is one of the official distribution of Kubernetes. So Qctl is one of the most famous methods. Apart from that, you can use Kubespray, which is an Ansible based tool, Rancher, is a container management platform. You can use that. Most frequently nowadays people are using AKS, EKS and GKE. These are the managed Kubernetes services provided by Google, Amazon and Microsoft. And OpenShift is a Kubernetes distribution, but it has some additional features and tools for developers and operational efficiency. Apart from that, K3S, if we are looking for some lightweight Kubernetes distribution, and apart from that, Docker Desktop with Kubernetes. So Docker Desktop also comes with Kubernetes that developer use lot of time in their machines. So these are the different ways. Now let us learn how we are going to set up MiniCube. MiniCube is one of the lightweight Kubernetes setup having a single node machine, and you can do almost all the labs exercises using MiniCube. So three components we have to install. We have to install Docker as a container platform over there. Then Qctl is a agent, you can say, or is a utility which helps to interact to Kubernetes API server. And then installing MiniCube. MiniCube is going to be a single node Kubernetes cluster. So let us begin with the setup. So first, what I am going to do? First, I am going to launch a machine in AWS. So you can give the name like DEVOPS Kubernetes class. Any name is okay. Then you can select here Ubuntu. Now, there is one minimum requirement that MiniCube need at least 2 CPU cores available in your system. So free tier is not eligible for it. So for the lab exercise, I am going to select some another distributions. So let me show you which machine I am going to use. So here if you go, you will see multiple options available here. Let us select it accordingly, which will be good for us. So Ubuntu, so this is operating system Ubuntu by default. Let us take 22.04. Then here the instance type T2 micro is not going to work because it has one virtual CPU and 1 GB of RAM only. So let us select some other T2 micro or T2 medium, T2 large, which has 2 CPU cores and 8 GB of memory. So let us select T2 large and then key pair. I have already created a key pair. I am using that key pair. Then all the values will be default. Just click on the launch instances. So it is automatically creating your instance and attach the security groups to it. Let us wait till the time this is going into the running state. Till the time it's going in the running state, let me explain you the other steps which we will be following. So first we are going to do Qctl setup. How Qctl setup will be done? You are going to download the binary of Qctl, and once it is done, just we are going to install that Qctl binary, change the permissions, and then next we'll verify Qctl version. Apart from that, we need the Docker setup. So we'll be setting up the repositories, and then we are going to do install Docker C, Docker CLI and container IO platform in our system, and then we'll test that Docker is running or not using docker run hello world command. And then the final step will be MiniCube setup. So let us see what is the status now. Is it in the running state or not? So now you can see connect button is enabled. So click on this, and then here example command is given. Just go to your command prompt. Let me clear the screen. Let me maximize it bit. And then just I am pasting. So SSH-I, my PEM key, and then machine details. So it is asking, would you like to connect? Yes, I would like to connect. Now I am connecting to the Ubuntu machine. So I am inside the Ubuntu. If you see how many CPU cores are there, you can see there are CPU 0 here and CPU 1. So 2 CPU cores are there, and which is the minimum requirement for setting up the MiniCube in this machine. So now let us begin. The first task which we have to do is let us install Qctl. So what to do? I have copied the commands already. So just I am going to use those commands to set up the Qctl. So curl, and then this is going to download the Qctl binary. It is done. Now I am going to verify that this is correct or not, everything is okay or not. So yeah, this is downloaded and done. Now let us verify the checksum and then install the Qctl. So the Qctl checksum is okay and then installation is done. Now change the Qctl permission and set up all the different binary paths and permissions. So it is done. Now the final step is to verify the Qctl version. So you can see current client version is 1.28.4. So Qctl is installed. Now next step, as I told, we have to install the Docker. But before installing, we are just going to update our repositories and add the repository and sources here. So just copy paste and let us move it accordingly. It will take few seconds to set up. So just wait till the time it is getting completed. While it is going set up, I'll explain you few more concepts. So see, the very first thing which we are going to understand, that why MiniCube? Why can't we use CubeADM or why can't we use AKSC? Those infrastructures are going to cost you more money. For a learning purpose or even for doing normal practical exercises, MiniCube is more than enough. And that MiniCube can set up in your Windows machines also. You don't need the AWS machine at all. If you are using Windows or MacBook, you can directly set up MiniCube in your local machines. So now these commands have been executed. Let us set up the repo and then we'll install the this is done. Let us move next and set up Docker. So let us see. So this is done. Now we can verify that this Docker is installed properly or not. Yeah, so Docker looks installed properly. So now for us, Qctl and Docker setup is done. What is next? So next step will be MiniCube setup. But for MiniCube setup, we need to download the binaries related to MiniCube. So let us do MiniCube, MiniCube on Ubuntu. So we have to install which versions? Any of the version, but yeah, here you see the minimum requirement is 2 CPU core, 2 GB of RAM and 20 GB of disk. So this is the minimum requirement. So here I came and we are going to install it in Linux. So just click it and there are only 2 commands to set up it. So let us go to our machines, clear the screen and then let us run. So now I think our setup is already done. We can start verifying. Yeah, so MiniCube setup is done. Let us verify the next step if they have, and then you can directly start your MiniCube cluster. But since our case, what is going to be the driver for starting MiniCube? So our driver is -- driver is equal to Docker. There is the another way. Yeah, this is one way, but there is some problem which I am facing. So there is another way. We can do -- force, which is okay to start it using the root user also. So I don't know, that user was having some problem, but there is the another way. We can start MiniCube using the option -- force, and that should be perfectly fine for us. So now it is what it is doing. It is downloading the Kubernetes version 1.28.3, and once it is done, your MiniCube is 100% ready. So let us wait a minute and you will see everything is working as expected. So now it is creating Docker container having 2 CPU and 2200 MB of RAM. So Once this is done, your MiniCube cluster will be ready and we can validate if everything is working as expected or not. So that is one of the way to create the Kubernetes cluster, and this is one of the easiest way. The same MiniCube setup, you don't need to use the AWS machines. Even you can do it in your Windows machines, or even you have a Linux machine, any machine, it is okay. So now it is done. If you want to see MiniCube status, like your MiniCube is running fine or not, so MiniCube status. So what you can see, type is control plane, host running, kubelet is running, API server is running, and kubeconfig is already configured. So now all the Qctl commands you can use. Qctl, get pods, and it will interact to your MiniCube server. Right now there are no resources, so I got the message, no resources found. So now we have the MiniCube setup done in AWS machines. If you don't want to use AWS, that is perfectly fine. You can use the machines in your local machine. So I'll show you, let me stop this machine and I'll show you how I have done or how I am using it in our Windows machines only. So in the Windows machines, let us use the Windows machine. That is the cheapest way, and you don't have to invest any money by running 2 CPU cores into AWS. So how I handle it in Windows? MiniCube and just start. So automatically in my Windows machines also I am using MiniCube, and MiniCube is using Docker desktop to connect. You can use VirtualBox or Docker desktop or any other virtualization tool for the MiniCube to interact with. By default it is taking the Windows drive, by default I am not specified, so it's taking the Docker desktop, but you can specify driver like VirtualBox or others. So now Qctl should be running in my system. Qctl get pods, and you will see I already have one pod running, and here you can see my applications is already running here. So this more practical exercises we are going to learn in coming lectures. So till today, if I summarize what all stuff we have learned, we learn what are the different methods of setting up Kubernetes cluster. The single node cluster can be set up using MiniCube. Apart from MiniCube, you have official ways like kubeadm, the cloud providers like AKS, EKS. These are the different GKS are the different cloud providers like Google, Amazon, Microsoft. Apart from that, using Ansible, there are some ways to do the Kubernetes setup. So that's it about today's lecture. Thank you so much guys for giving your valuable time. Thank you.